Good evening and welcome to the third episode of Prince Hall Think Tank OES. We are so glad that we could be here with you this evening and we have a great show planned for you. But I gotta poke a little fun. On our very first ladies takeover of Prince Hall Think Tank, we revamped and we did Forces of Nature, which we're redoing today. And due to the Forces of Nature, Darnisha went dark. And now we're doing Forces of Nature again. And she's here. She's just dark for the afternoon, but she will be here to do her presentation. You will be able to hear her voice and her presentation. Um, but tonight we want to celebrate women who are forces of nature in our organization, who stood as pillars for our communities and stood for those who always didn't stand for them. And tonight we want to celebrate their lives and accomplishments. But first, we always got to go and do that disclaimer. The opinions, statements, and perspectives presented herein are solely those of the contributors and do not represent or reflect the official policies, positions, or views of any subordinate Grand Chapter or Grand Lodge. This material is intended exclusively for informational and educational purposes. Members and viewers are advised that any jurisdiction-specific practices, regulations, or interpretations should be verified through the appropriate governing body within their respective jurisdictions. So you can hear what our introducing our first host of the night is Darnisha C. Pickett. Can we hear you?
Good evening, everyone. This is Sister Darnisha C. Pickett, the 31st past Groundworthy Matron of Excelsior Grand Chapter, Order of the Eastern Star, Tennessee Jurisdiction, Prince Hall Affiliation, where Sister Crystal Banks is the Groundworthy Matron and Brother Antoine Miller is the Groundworthy Patron. The Grand Master is Brother L. Lamont Banks, and he serves as the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Tennessee.
Patrice.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sister Patrice Hill, past matron of Gambler's Choice. I'm 827, current past matron of Carter Success 870A, where Sister Chanel Holloman serves as my worthy matron. Brother Carlton Curley serves as my worthy patron. Mitzvah Grand Chapter, Order of Eastern Star, where Sister Shirley Pratt serves as my grand worthy matron. The late but great Calvin Miller served as our grand worthy patron. Under the auspices of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Alabama, where the Corey D. Hawkins Esquire is my Grand Master.
And I am past matron Alexis P. Anaskevich, the past matron of Ionic Chapter number 77 in Buffalo, New York, where I served as a district deputy grand matron, a special deputy, and I've served as an elected grand chapter officer. My current worthy matron is Sister Brandy Lee Bolton, and my worthy patron is Brother Jathan Levy. Sister Marcia Mack serves as the Grand Worthy Matron, and Brother Grant Valentine as Grand Worthy Patron of Eureka Grand Chapter, Prince Hall Order, Eastern Star, State of New York, and where the Reverend Dr. Darren M. Morton currently serves as the 60th Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, State of New York. So this evening, as we talked about in the name of our show, Forces of Nature, there are some women who have stood and walked the path before us that have left the footprints for us to walk in. And they started paths that went in the ways that we don't understand where they came from to how we got here today. So we're going to begin this journey and we're going to talk about someone who knew the power of advocacy and the courage to stand in spaces that were not created for us. Our first spotlight is a woman whose voice carried beyond limitation and a woman who understands that progress requires both presence and persistence. And we reflect on the legacy of Vivian Marsh.
Vivian Constroma Osborne Marsh, born September 5th, 1898, in Houston, Texas, to Benjamin and Alice. Her father passed in 1910. So after that, Vivian, mom, and sister moved to Berkeley, California in 1913. And Vivian graduated from Berkeley High School in 1914. She is also known to be a pillar of intelligence and resilience. Vivian applied for UC Berkeley in a time where Black students who were schooled in the southern states, the university refused to give admission to those students unless they passed 4 entrance exams. Vivian passed 2 and was excused from the remaining 2 because of her results of the first 2 were excellent. The university dissolved the discriminatory policy against the students of the South. And this is how she began to create a new identity for the university for the better. She was indeed the first Black woman to ever major in anthropology and one of the first 2 Black women to earn a master's degree at the university. Her notable thesis was entitled Types and Distribution of Negro Folklore in America. She was a definite activist and political involvement, and she was involved in the following: National Association of Colored Women Clubs, such as Phyllis Wheatley Club, YWCA, Berkeley Women's Civic Club, Division of Negro Affairs for California Youth Administration. She was elected president of the California State Association of Colored Women in 1941. Also elected vice president of the National Council of Negro Women, member of the State Republican Legislative Council, served on the Alameda County Republican Central Committee, also vice president of Alameda County Republican League. One of her most notable deeds that she did was indeed during World War II. Vivian christened a Navy cargo ship in Oakland, California, and she was leader of Women's Ambulance Defense Corps of America. She was indeed also a prominent member of the Order of Eastern Star. Vivian joined OES under the Golden State Grand Chapter, jurisdiction of California, Prince Hall affiliated, under Queen Esther No. 4, where she indeed served as worthy matron. Under her tenure as Grand Worthy Matron, she established 9 chapters and presided over 2 chapters in Tulare and Los Angeles, California. Vivian's husband, Leon Marsh, joined Freemasonry under the California jurisdiction of Prince Hall affiliated and organized Adonis Lodge number 25, known as one of the largest lodges in the state, and served as worshipful master. He also served as worthy patron of Queen of Esther No. 4, in which the couple made a vibrant team while serving as Grand Worthy Patron and Vivian as Grand Worthy Matron. She was also a member of Pairs of Jericho and served as most ancient matron and organized various courts. She was also a prominent member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. While attending Berkeley, Vivian joined Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and founded the Kappa chapter on the campus. She also founded several other chapters within the sorority. She served as the 7th national president from 1935 to 1939. She created two major programs, which were Traveling Library, providing books to rural parts of Georgia, and Teen Lift, providing opportunities to underprivileged teens to visit such as symphonies and opera. She also spoke on the behalf of the sorority in Washington, D.C. to support laws against lynching. And of course, Vivian Marsh passed in 1986 due to a fatal illness. One of my favorite quotes that she said in the Oakland Tribune on May 9th, 1926 says, "Thus has the Negro girl proven her right to a shared democracy. Rights and liberties of civilized rights and humanity include the right to move freely over the face of the earth. Yet, after Negro girls have labored to acquire the needed education and culture, most of the doors of industry are shut in their faces, not because of their inability, because of their color." Thank you.
So as we move forward, I'm going to spotlight my soulmate, and everybody who knows anything about me knows that Mary Burnett Talbert is one of the most interesting women, um, and she's one of the most forgotten women. She shifted, her legacy was about organized resistance on a global impact. Um, and one of the things that I always say about Mary Talbert is, just like everybody knows Oprah's name today, everybody knew Mary Talbert's name then. Mary Burnett Talbert was born September 18th of 1866 in Oberlin, Ohio. She graduated at the age of 16, where she attended and graduated from Oberlin College. She was only the fourth woman of color to do so, with a literary degree in 1885. She was fluent in four languages, but she spoke seven. She taught briefly in the Arkansas public school system, where she taught as a home economics teacher as well as a history teacher, and was a principal. In 1899, she married William Talbert and moved to Buffalo, New York. And in 1902, she gave birth to her only daughter, Sarah May Talbert. Next. Michigan Street Baptist Church, which still stands today in Buffalo, New York, was often the last stop for slaves on the Underground Railroad before freedom. This church sits approximately 2.5 miles from where slaves would jump in the water, and if they could make it to that water, they were home free, because right across that water was Canada. Um, she joined Michigan Street Baptist Church and formed the Christian Culture Congress, which she would serve as its president until her death in 1923. And this church is where all of her civic work would begin. In 1899, she started the Phyllis Wheatley Club in Buffalo. The purpose of this club was to assist colored women as part of the Northern migration to assimilate into urban society. They taught literacy, they taught personal hygiene, they taught economics and finance, so that women knew how to budget and how to grocery shop. And they taught the women how to survive in a metropolis versus in cities where manual labor was often all they knew. In April of 1906, Mary B. Talbert became the first duly elected and installed worthy matron of Naomi Chapter Number 10, which remains a subordinate chapter of Eureka Grand Chapter, Prince Hall Order, Eastern Star in the state of New York. Naomi Chapter Number 10 was responsible for organizing literacy programs, public hygiene classes, and providing clothes and supplies to Buffalo's only rest home for colored veterans. she was she began her suffragette work with the NACW. One of the things that I think even today we realize is that even though the fight for women and our right to vote benefits everyone, Mary Burnett Talbot was one of the first women to publicly speak against working with white women for the right to vote. Because even though we worked for them, they didn't often work for us. She was elected national president for the NACW in 1916 and served until 1920. She was the first woman of color to be elected to the International Council of Women, and she also founded the International Council of Women of the Darker Races. Next page. This picture is one of the pictures that is often associated with the beginning of the Niagara movement, which would eventually turn into the NAACP. One of the thorns in my side about this picture is that this picture, which Mary Burnett Talbot is in the background, features W.E.B. Du Bois, her husband, William Trotter. But this is the only picture of Mary Burnett Talbot in the African American Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. She helped form the Niagara movement with her husband in her living room. They met there for a year before they even had their first official meeting. Next page. This is an open letter to the college men regarding joining the Niagara movement and getting young people involved in it. And this was the Declaration of Principles that she also helped write. And then she was often involved in the conversation about the Niagara movement versus the Atlanta Compromise with Booker T. Washington. And that's kind of where a lot of people split and the NAACP got its rise. One of her biggest achievements that a lot of people think of with Mary B. Talbot is the NAACP. She co-founded the Buffalo chapter, which is still an active chapter. She served as the national vice president of the NAACP from 1919 to 1923. She was the national director of the NAACP's anti-lynching campaign. And during this time is when she mentored Ida B. Wells. A lot of people think of Ida B. Wells when it comes to lynching, which is very true. Ida B. Wells did a lot of footwork. She did a lot of writing regarding lynching and telling the stories of people that were lynched. But it was because of Mary B. Talbot that Ida B. Wells had this passion. She also served on the board of directors, and she was the first woman, and meaning she was also the first woman of color, to receive the Spring Garden Award, which was given for outstanding achievements of a Negro woman. And she was published in The Crisis, which is the official publication of the NAACP. One of the things that a lot of people don't talk about Mary B. Talbot is that she lobbied very hard for the Dyer anti-lynching bill. Next slide. This, unfortunately, is something that we still fight for today. This is a bill that would make lynching a federal crime, and it would make local, county, state, federal, any law enforcement officers were to prosecute it if they failed to report, act upon, or participated in the lynching activities. And as we all know, during this time, you didn't necessarily know who was under those hoods. And a lot of time it was law enforcement. It did pass the House of Representatives, but in the end, it did fail in the Senate. She was also a published writer. She published 3 works, Women and the Colored Women, The Crisis in 1915, The Achievements of Negro Women During the Past 15 Years in 1950, which there are only 3 copies left. And there's only 1 copy left of The Life of Harriet Tubman in 1918. She was also active with Naomi chapter number 10 and providing a monthly pension to Mother Harriet Tubman until her death. On October 15th, 1923, after a life well lived, Mary Burnett Talbert departed this life, where she rests in Forest Lawn Cemetery next to her husband and her daughter in Buffalo, New York. One of her favorite sayings is, "The greatness of nations is shown by their strict regard for human rights, rigid enforcement of the law without bias, and just administration of the affairs of life." And the fact that we are still fighting for those rights today tells a lot about this woman and her forethought and her foresight of what our community needed. And I hope you will not forget that name, because she is one of the most powerful women in our history. And next, we're going to turn it over to Darnisha. Can we hear you?
You can.
Okay. We're going to talk about the legacy through education and structure and sustainability. Selena Salone Butler understood that true change is not momentary. It is built and nurtured and passed forward. Darnisha?
Good evening, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking about Selena Sloan Butler. I named this presentation Ever the Walking Path Grows. Of course, she is a force of nature. And during my research of Sister Butler, I found great inspiration in some of her life activities, which I would like to briefly share with you all tonight. Next slide, please. Sister Butler was born January 4th, 1872. She was a woman who dedicated her entire adult life to the education of African American children and advocated for human rights. Although she did amazing work, she accomplished many things with a band of like minded people through the Order of the Eastern Star, Atlanta Federation of Colored Women's Clubs, the National Congress of Parents Teachers Conference, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, the National Urban League, and many, many more. Let us begin walking. Sister Butler married Henry Rutherford Butler May 3rd, 1893. From their union, they had a son on November 1st, 1899. Henry Rutherford Butler Jr. After his birth, her interest in education became stronger because in their community they did not have a kindergarten for African American children. So she created one in her living room. Her husband, Dr. Butler, was a practicing physician who became a partner of the first African American owned drugstore in Georgia. The Young Street Elementary School in Atlanta, Georgia, was renamed to Henry Rutherford Butler Elementary School. Sister Butler came from California to be at the school dedication. When it was her time to give her remarks, she described her husband as an informed man who worked for the benefit of others and who, above all, was a Christian man. She presented the school with a portrait of him in hopes that it would motivate the school to high achievement. Their son, Henry Rutherford Butler Jr., also formerly attended the school. I'm not sure if you can see it, but on the tomb, it does note that he was the Grand Master from 1901 to 1931 for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Georgia. While serving as Grand Master in 1916, he participated in the installation of his wife as Royal Matron of Ruth Chapter number 102. This is a picture of Henry Rutherford Butler Jr., the only son born to H.R. and Selena Sloan Butler. On, on the right hand side, on the left hand side, is his book of poems entitled In the Spring of Life, in which he dedicates to his mother and father and dearest friends. He has a collection of poems that were not published that is called a collection of verses. In 1921, Sister Butler and Brother Butler are listed as delegates of the Second Pan African Congress. The Congress was called and financed by the NAACP, but it seems that something changed. So in December of 1920, Dr. Du Bois brought it to the board of directors to decide if the Congress should be held. Du Bois made a projection that if they wanted to fund the Congress, it would cost between $1,750 and $2,700. The board voted to go forward with the planning. They were able to raise the necessary money by fundraising and membership drives. On April 7th of 1924, Dr. H.R. Butler wrote a letter to his son, as he did often. He and Sister Butler seemed to alternate their writings to their son. Unlike other correspondents, I've seen Sister Butler would often handwrite the letters to him. In this particular letter, Dr. Butler lays out Sister Butler's plans. This is 2 years before the National Congress of Parents and Teachers were formed. At this point, the groundwork is still being done. Christine Washner wrote about Sister Butler in her book, The National PTA, Race and Civic Engagement, 1987 to 1970. She writes, if the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers can be said to have originated in any one location, it will be Atlanta, under the leadership of Selena Sloan Butler. She continues to quote an article that Sister Butler wrote in 1897 to the Spelman Messenger that spoke directly to her interest on Black advancement in education. Study the past and the current history of your race, and with pride tell it to your pupils in the classroom or to your children as you sit around the fireside. If you do not do this, who will? Sister Butler became known to the white, quote unquote, National Congress of Mothers because she was one of the members of the National Association of Colored Women who was contacted by Helen Burney, who served as a board member for the National Congress of Mothers, which was an organization founded on February 17, 1897 in Washington, D.C., to focus on education, health, and safety issues related to children. Helen Burney contacted Sister Butler in 1908 to organize a Black National PTA, and Sister Butler refused assistance from them and continued to work her way through local areas. Although the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers were a parallel organization to the white PTA, Sister Butler made it clear, quote, function in those states where separate schools for the race were. Where there are no separate schools, she didn't encourage separate associations. She encouraged the Black women to join the PTA of the school in which they were patrons and give them their best effort in unselfish cooperation. In those places with segregated schools, the colored schools must have their own PTA. Georgia, Alabama, Delaware, and Florida was the founding states of the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers. In 1931, President Herbert Hoover wrote Selena Sloan Butler the annual convention of the National Congress of Colored Women, Colored Parents and Teachers brings to this city representatives of a very important movement in the improvement of children of the race. I am interested to note that the program of your convention stresses the Children's Charter as a challenge to better standards of child care and protection. Displayed, I have a membership card of the NCCPT from 1963. The objects are to promote the welfare of children and youth in home, school, church, and community, to raise the standards of home life, to secure adequate laws for the care and protection of children and youth, to bring into closer relation the home and school, that the parents and teachers may cooperate intelligently in the training of the child, and to develop between educators and the general public such united efforts as will secure for every child the highest advantages in physical, mental, social, and spiritual education. Sister Butler gave her Grand Lecturer's Report June 29, 1937, in Savannah, Georgia. There are many interesting parts of the report that I wanted to highlight. Two portions that I thought were most important. Sister Butler reports that she responded to the call of the Grand Master, who was Brother John Wesley Dobbs at the time, and she presented a lecture at the groundbreaking on May 1st for the Masonic Temple, and turned a shovel of dirt for the Order of the Eastern Star of Georgia. She also reports of the merging of Viola Hart Felton and Plymouth Rock chapters with other chapters in Atlanta. She concludes her report in this manner: Your Grand Lecturer has served you to the best of her ability, according to the facilities with which she had to work. Thank you for the honor of serving you and the cooperation which you have given. Fraternally yours, Sister Butler. Displayed here is a number of correspondence between Sister Butler, who served as the Grand Chapter's chairman for the scholarship funds, and various chapters within the jurisdiction that she corresponded with. What I found most interesting is the fact that every thank you letter sent to the secretary of the chapter was specific to the chapter. It was a personalized letter thanking the chapter for their donation, and it listed how much each chapter in the jurisdiction of Georgia donated. In the folders of correspondence that was found, that Brother John Wesley Dobbs and Sister Butler often wrote each other, sometimes regarding the order and sometimes regarding family. Displayed on the left is a letter dated February 10th, 1953, from Grandmaster Dobbs to Sister Hannah Lewis of Ruth Chapter number 102. He asked that Sister Butler be sent a dues card to her new address in California. He ends the letter with P.S. I am mailing the check of $5 directly to Miss Selena Butler. This check was voted to her by Ruth Chapter in December. There seemed to have been some kind of discrepancy when it came to her dues, because in her response dated February 23rd, 1953, she writes Grandmaster Dobbs and says, "Thank you for looking after the Eastern Star matter for me. I have received the cards, receipted, and a nice note from the treasurer, Miss Lewis. I shall write the chapter shortly." She goes on in the letter to ask Grandmaster Dobbs to have the trees planted in memory of Dr. Butler pruned at Oakland Cemetery. She expressed that they had grown too large, and she requested to have them dome shaped. She sent her gratitude to him. In June of 1961, Sister Butler received a telegram from the Special Assistant to President John F. Kennedy to share in appreciation for her work and well-deserved tribute as founder of the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers. Sister Butler transitioned October 9th, 1964, in Los Angeles, California, in the care of her only son and his family. As you may can see, I was able to touch the surface on the contributions of Sister Butler to the African American race. Her life was full of service, and I hope this presentation piques your interest to research more about Selena Sloan Butler and her involvements. Let us be inspired to continue the work exemplified through the life of Sister Butler. Ever the walking path grows. Thank you for your time and attention this evening.
Thank you. So while we were talking about these women, I've seen a couple of really good questions in the chat. One of them is, while researching these great women, have you found any types of tributes, memorials, etc., given to them by their respective jurisdictions? I am saddened to say no. Um, I think sometimes, and it's quite unfortunate, that a lot of these women get lost to history. And a lot of times, a lot of jurisdictions don't know what jewels they have in their jurisdictions. Ladies, have you found any tributes to your pillars?
No, for Marsh, not saying that they don't exist, but I didn't see anything. The only tribute that I did see that they honored her in was in Delta Sigma Theta. That was about it. But anything OES wise, jurisdictional wise, no.
I will say, I will back up and say this. There is the first picture that was in my slide. I will say that picture is hanging in St. John's Lodge number 16. The original that's hanging in the lodge. Um, but other than that, I don't think Darnisha, what about you?
I did look while researching Sister Butler, and I have not found anything. Um, but again, like you all said, that's not to say that it has not been done, but it's nothing that I could go back and retrace.
I think that oftentimes, like I said, I think a lot of women are lost to history, not on purpose. I think that because we are so active that sometimes we pass the torch to the next person. We spend less time documenting what we did. And so it doesn't, our history isn't as well documented as the brothers. That I can say for certain. Um, and I think that is a part of our goal is to get people to start doing that. If it's not, but to find one person in your jurisdiction and write a bio and just keep it and submit it to your grand chapter or your grand lodge to keep that information. Because a lot of times, one of the things that I can tell you about Mary Burnett Talbert is a lot of things that she did were intertwined with the NACW, with the OES, with the Phyllis Wheatley, and a lot of those women were intertwined. These were tight circles of women who worked and were part of these different organizations. So what they may have done for one, they were doing for the other. And so, and again, people weren't doing it for the recognition; they were doing it for the work.
Absolutely. The more work you seen these sisters do, the more you can really see that they didn't have time to showboat. They didn't have time to brag about, I'm over here doing this, I'm over here doing that. They're too busy. They're too busy being on the committees. They're too busy being vice president, making sure everything is set up because they know that lives were at stake. Not only just theirs, just we in general. Lives are at stake. Freedom is at stake. Respect is at stake. Honor is at stake. Like everything for us is at stake, and there's no time to play. So I agree.
Um, and I think to kind of repeat what I said is, one of the things that we want to do as part of our mission is to not only actively preserve history, but is to actively be a part of it. And that's part of reaching out and teaching that our history is just as important as everybody else's history. And a lot of their history couldn't be written without our history. As a matter of fact, none of their history could be written without our history. And when we talk about and we look at and we turn on the news today, right, we're seeing a repeat. History is starting to repeat itself. And we have women now who have more rights because of the women that we talked about. You have a woman who started the PTA and said, this is what we're here for. We're here for the betterment of our youth and for our children, for their protection. And with that comes responsible adults. You had another woman whose her whole life was based on moving the station of people of color in their, in her lifetime. So when you talk about all these women, part of it is how can we keep their legacy alive? Not only by walking in their legacy and fighting the fights that people are fighting now, because guess what? We can't do that just sitting at home, but also preserving their history and their legacy. What do you think can be done to better document efforts of women like this? Um, I think part of it is better use of technology. We have the technology is and to start working with organizations. I know for us here in New York, we have the Schomburg, um, making sure that things are cataloged, making sure when we find things, they don't just get passed along, you know, as a family heirloom, but that making sure that we're preserving it. I'm gonna pass this to Darnisha because she is our resident travel historian who goes all over the earth to find these things.
I can just think of James R. Morgan the third when I hear that question. One thing that I was doing a bunch of research in the beginning, and he asked me a question, and I could not give him an answer, and he says, "Okay, what have you written?" And that goes in my mind constantly because I think sometimes we overlook the importance of the Phylaxis Society and the Phyllis Society for the sisters, because they have a magazine in which they publish research, and we have a lot of people with the knowledge, and we have a lot of people who are doing the research and doing the work, but it's not published. And I think that if we took that more on as a priority to write things down and publish it, then we have a better chance of spreading that knowledge to those members. But not only that, I was introduced to the Phyllis because my past grandworthy matron Eva Drain and my chapter brought that literature back to the chapter. And so don't mistake that just because I'm not a member of the Phyllis, I won't get the information. You may not get it firsthand, but it may also be passed down to you. So I would definitely say, um, even for myself, there's a lot of research that I've done that I've not written anything down yet. And so, but that's something that I need to do. And I think that writing, whether it's published electronically, because they are our means, I have the medium, I think it's called. And I know other brothers and sisters who have published things on an online publication. That's good too. And I know that we often publish things on Facebook. I love sharing research and things like that, but Facebook is a constant B roll. And tomorrow you have to search and search and search and find what you're looking for. So a lot of research, although it's published on Facebook, it gets lost in the sauce.
Um, I just want to point out as concerning research and how we can preserve. First and foremost, I think that grand chapters should first and foremost look at the ones who have the passion, who have the courage, who have the passion, who have the time, who has that tenacity to want to preserve. Put them in place to help preserve, especially for your jurisdiction. Because if your jurisdiction is preserving, other jurisdictions can, hey, what do you have on, sister or brother so and so? Can we take a look? Can we read? Can we learn more about? We want to learn more about what do y'all have on this and that person. So the opportunity of giving sisters the time to put in that work to preserve, and that's a level of respect that I believe that each jurisdiction should have, concerning anybody that comes from the past that has paved the way, that has put in time and work. And also with preserving, giving the tools, give these people the necessary tools to preserve. Don't skimp them on the tools that they need to preserve. Respect that like you respect other compartments of your grand chapter. Respect that, give that honor, give that presence to that, and that would be so beneficial. So I just wanted to point that out.
And y'all know me with my little fiery opinions. One thing I do want to say about that is one thing that we don't we like to share the pretty stuff of history. You don't know, you have to history is all the good, the bad, the ugly, the in between. And one of the things that I always tell people is that you don't have to be the grand historian. It starts with being a good recording secretary, keeping accurate minutes. When I was a deputy, I had a chapter that I had to explain to them. They would say, Sister Smith, you got 9 Sister Smiths on the roll. I don't know if it was Sister Janie Smith, Sister Joni Smith, or Sister Amy Smith. When you take your minutes in your chapter, because guess what? Every last one of these women was in a chapter. That's where they started. So some of their actions and some of the things that they did and that they were involved with were in their chapter. We get history from those minutes. And if you don't keep it accordingly, you lose history. And people don't think that it's important, but guess where we get our information from? Reading minutes. And that's something I learned from Darnisha. That's something I learned from other people is that the minutes will tell you what happened. And as past matrons and past masters, guess what? Our legacy lies in the minutes of our administrations. So when someone becomes Grand Master or Grand Matron, you can tell what they did in their chapter because their name is laced all the way through those minutes. So that right there, starting in your chapter, your grand chapter's minutes, your recording secretary. No, you don't have to read every single thing, but all those little things that you hear and all of those are important to be in the minutes. Um, does OES grand historians currently exist in your respective jurisdictions? Yes, I'm just gonna say that.
I'm gonna follow up behind Alexis and say, absolutely.
Tanisha.
Yes.
Should Grand Lodges and Grand Chapters with archiving this information, or is it solely Grand Chapters jobs to do this? I think they should be working hand in hand. Um, because one of the things that I learned from Darnisha through some research that she did is a lot of these grand lodges that have these buildings, guess what? Your grand chapters helped you get them, but there's no record of that.
Say
Just
what
saying.
you're saying and say it proudly.
Say it
Yes.
with, say it with, say it
You
with your
know,
chest. Say it with your chest, please.
the thing is you have a lot of people that don't realize grand chapter grand chapters and grand lodges, in order to exist, they have to function together. And one of the things that I've heard and I keep speaking about, in order for one to be successful, the other has to be successful. They work hand in hand. As Eastern Stars, for those of us that believe in the landmarks and stick by them, we are because you are, right? The OES does not exist without masonry. It just doesn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that historians, yes, there should be responsibility of the grand chapters because there are things that happen um, parallel to what's going on. But I also believe that while you have this grandmaster, this grand matron is doing this, those are journeys that they take together, right? I know in my jurisdiction, you can't approve a constitution without the Grand Lodge, right? So that means that things have to be happening in tandem with each other, which means the history should be told in tandem. Because guess what? If you put most of those stories together, they're not just the A and the B, they're the whole story. So um
Amen.
I'm just laughing at all of the I'm just laughing at all the comments. Um and I think one of the things that I think everybody can do better, and I'm gonna say this with our yeses, and I'm gonna say it very proudly, is I think we all think that it should be done a little better, right? Like Patrice said, I think that giving people the tools to do it is very important. Um, and also when grand chapters, grand lodges, when they make history an important part of their trestle boards and their programs, then it becomes important to the membership. But if it's not important to your leadership, it's not going to be important to the membership and it gets bypassed.
And,
Most
and
of the time, if
and
go ahead.
let me add to that. It's the education that's in what's recorded. How can I explain it in its most simplest thing? When you can back and see what Grand Matron so and so did back then, you can see what didn't work. You can see what didn't make sense. You can see what made sense. You can see where the division came from. You can see where the collectiveness came from. When you can read and comprehend, you can see and notice some things, and you can take that and run with it and say, oh yeah, we'll ever need to try to do that ever again, or maybe we probably need to implement that. Maybe we need to go back to that a little bit, or maybe we need to stay away from whatever it may be. It teaches you. Overall, it teaches you. It gives you the insight that you need, because I don't care what anybody says, knowing where your Grand Lodge and your Grand Chapter came from all the way up to now is very vital when you want to be in leadership. It's very vital when you want to sit somewhere and
Yeah,
And
understand why you're looking at what you're looking at now because of what happened yesterday.
exactly.
And it makes a whole world of difference. But that's all I wanted to say on that. I'm sorry.
but one of the things that you say is important. Um, and I won't give you the whole entire story because that's not my person. But if you ever read and know the story of Lewis Fair in New York, there's certain structural things that happens with the brothers. And it was funny because I remember somebody gave me some explanation as to, oh, well, you do this. And the whole explanation didn't make sense, but they didn't know. So they made up the history when in fact, this whole structure of how things happen came because of what Louis Fair did. Right. And so when you look back at it, you're like, oh, now that I know the history, it helps me know the structure. It helps me know protocol. It helps me know all of those things. So when we don't do that, we lose things. And the thing is, there's a lot of whys. Like one of the things that I didn't know until later on, history and culture. Everybody comes to New York and asks why we wear black. We wear black for the most part. We wear white, in public for sermon. We wear white for degrees, but people don't realize where we wear black. A lot of our members were domestics. They traveled by subway. They traveled and they wore their uniforms to their meeting. And guess what color those uniforms were? Black. So that's why New York, Prince Hall, Eastern Stars wear black. And it's a very simple explanation. But guess what? Because you don't know the history, you just assume that that's what everybody does and that's what's right. Our reason for wearing black is very practical. It has nothing to do with style, it has nothing to do with where you go. It's a practical piece of culture. So that's why history is always important. So as we come to a close, we want to give some thanks to some people. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to past matron Patrice Hill.
We want to, as Prince Hall Think Tank OES podcast, we would like to take this time to just give a shout out to our brothers of the Prince Hall Think Tank, Brother Kathy, Dave, Jack. We just want to give y'all a shout out for just being our support system, correcting us, showing us the way, and we humbly appreciate it. But at this time, we want to point out one definite brother, the one and only King Jaffer, the Damien of the Jack. We wanted to give him thanks for being the man, the king, as he journeys in his life as a brother of a wealth of knowledge, a brother of most Patrick, a brother of wealth of knowledge, a brother of just good stamp. Yes, Ayana made the picture, Jack. Ayana made the picture, Jack. She started it, and I went on ahead and finished it. I just had to. We had to go through this joke. It is you. We had to throw that joke in there. Oh God, we had to. Oh, Damien Jack, we appreciate you, man. We had to throw that in there.
I just every time I turn on Facebook, there you never know what you're gonna get, and that was the highlight of my day that day. But again, we want to thank you for joining us on our third episode of the Prince Hall Think Tank OES. We will be announcing our next show, which will be the second Sunday of May before we close out for the summer. And we look forward to seeing each of you and some more guests. And we're just thankful that you're here with us and on this journey.
Oh, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. Thank y'all for watching the show. We don't take that lightly and we don't take that arrogantly. It's real support is real love. That's the way I look at it, and I just want everybody to know who really heartfelt support us. We thank you, and we look forward to seeing y'all in May and beyond.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, hopefully, you all will, in your spare time, read about these individuals that we spoke about um, this evening. And I always question: are there those who doubt the Black woman's contribution to the legacy of Black Freemasonry? And when that was talked about, I thought about two books: The Artifacts of Old African Lodge by Brother Batista, and The History of the Jurisdiction of Oklahoma, Cemented with Love by Brother Daryl Hodge. And if you all read those two books, and I'm sure there's others out there, they had to give accolades because it's historical that the women contributed so much, even to the artifacts of African Lodge. They got that from somebody. But I do want you to read that book and get the rest of those little tidbits and nuggets. But thank you all so much for watching us, and we can't wait to see you all again.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.